Linux is a well-known operating system, widely used in various applications. Linux is found almost everywhere, in your phones, Wi-Fi routers, and even appliances running Windows-based software. But is Linux safe? The answer is simple. No, it is not. And yes, it is. It's complicated to say whether Linux is completely safe or not. Linux is used more than Windows, but not as a desktop operating system. Instead, it's used in web servers and various IoT devices, including home routers and even your phone. Yes, the Android phone you're using right now is based on Linux. Compared to Windows, Linux is less prone to cyber attacks. Why? Because what would a hacker gain by hacking into a Linux computer? Hackers often target Windows systems because they are widely used in offices and companies. These systems hold valuable data and money, which attracts hackers to develop malware and take control of these systems. Linux as a desktop operating system is not commonly used by individuals or large companies for office work. So, why would a hacker waste their time and resources creating malware for Linux if it serves little purpose? As mentioned earlier, Linux is extensively used in web servers. Most responsive websites rely on Linux for their backends. However, there's little incentive for hackers to create malware targeting Linux web servers. Instead, they exploit web vulnerabilities or server misconfigurations. For example, if a hacker finds an outdated version of a web application running on a server, they can craft an exploit and gain a reverse shell. While there are relatively few malware programs specifically targeting Linux, many are developed to attack Windows machines. Linux is an open-source project, which means anyone can read its source code and make modifications. Community-published packages are carefully tested by experts and community members, ensuring security. For instance, if you've used Kali Linux, you might know about apt, its package manager, which allows you to install various tools. You might be surprised to learn that every package you install on Kali Linux is thoroughly reviewed to ensure no malicious code has been added by the developer. Linux is secure by design. It has a robust system of user permissions. For example, a file created by the root user cannot be accessed by a normal user unless permission is granted. These user permissions make Linux more secure than other operating systems, especially Windows, which is notorious for its weak user permissions. In Linux, you must set up both a root password and a user password. Every user except guest is required to have a password. In contrast, Windows allows accounts to be set up without passwords, and software installations often don't require administrator approval. Installing tools and software in Linux is also different. In Linux, you cannot install or uninstall software without root or sudo permissions, whereas in Windows, software can often be installed without administrator consent. Linux is generally used by people who have some knowledge of programming and security. They can use Linux as their main desktop operating system because they understand the security measures needed to make Linux more secure. However, for someone starting their journey with Windows and with no knowledge of security or programming, Linux is not recommended. Now let's look at what makes Linux unsafe. The Linux directory system isn't as secure as it should be. By default, Linux has two types of users: the root user, who owns the entire system, and normal users. Each has separate directories, the root directory for the root user and home directories for normal users. Most of the time, everything is stored in the user's home directory, and hardly anything is stored in the root directory. If a hacker gains access to a user account, they can retrieve everything without needing to escalate privileges. Linux is not frequently targeted by malware. However, if a hacker is specifically targeting you and your Linux system, you are not safe, as a Linux operating system can be hacked with a single line of code. While Linux is less prone to attacks, it doesn't mean you can visit every flashy website or download content from anywhere. You can still fall victim to phishing, social engineering, and hacking. So, is Linux safe? To some extent, yes. But it also has vulnerabilities. If you plan to use Linux, ensure it's within a safe and secure environment. Stay cautious and avoid taking unnecessary risks. If you found this video useful, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up for more cybersecurity and ethical hacking content. That's all for this video. Until next time, happy hacking.